there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today we're going to paint this beautiful landscape. It's very simple, but it's just so serene and pretty because you've got a beautiful pastel sky, you've got some mist on the water, and yeah, I'm hearing the song Smoke on the Water the whole time when I was painting this sample, but I just thought it turned out so nice, and it's a great way to use those fan type palettes or those novelty palettes that you may have picked up. Maybe you have one, maybe you've got one for a gift, but they contain some unusual colors. So this is the Artify set of 58. I'm actually holding it upside down because I want the mixing area visible since I won't be able to have all of this on screen. But we're going to be using these two blues. We're going to use that pink, this light pink, a little bit of a peach color. We're going to use some Prussian blue, some sap green, an orange, and a yellow. And I think we actually dip into a little bit of that red too. So please use whatever you have. If you don't have a set like this, what you can do is you can use a Chinese white with your more vibrant colors to make it pastel without really making it more opaque. That's what a mixing white is for. That's what a Chinese white is for. It's not really for white highlights. It's more to when you want to dilute a really bright color without making it just like water, where you want to have a little body to it. So what I have done is I have taped down my paper to a piece of foam core, and I'm going to draw a horizon line on this. So what I'm going to do is just line up my little square because I forgot to do this before. Actually, I'll line up this big one. I forgot to do this before I turned the camera on. Oh my gosh, I'm hopeless. Sorry for my head there. I should have measured this up before I taped it down, but. And then I will use this to just pencil in a line about halfway down, maybe a smidgen closer to the bottom than the top, so you have a little more sky in the sky area to use. The only pencil I have nearby is like a honkin' graphite stick. Oh well, such is life. It'll be fine. You don't have to put that down if you want to. And if your line's too dark, what you can do is you can take you can very, very gently, I don't like to use a kneaded eraser on watercolor paper, just because it can be a little, it can leave oils, but I can go over very, very gently with this vinyl eraser and then use a big dry brush to brush off my crumbs. So, 2 minutes and 30 seconds in, and I've showed you how to draw a line, friends. Oh boy. Goodness, I should put this right here and you could see that while we're going. That makes sense, wouldn't it? Let's put my tape behind there. That might help it keep it where it needs to be. Alright, we're going to wet the sky area. You can use whatever brush you want to do for that. Basically, by wetting the sky area, it's going to allow our paint to flow. So wet above the line only. You don't want to wet the whole page yet. I'm using cotton watercolor paper. Cotton's probably going to behave a little bit better for this technique because it does keep your paper wet more uniformly for longer. If you're using cellulose paper, I'm sure it'll be beautiful. You just might get some blossoms, which could be pretty too. Those could look like nice clouds. So use what you have and enjoy. Enjoy the process of our painting today. So I'm going to start off with this really kind of milky pastel blue. And we'll want it kind of like a, milky consistency. And I'm just going to streak that into the sky. So if you don't have a set like this, you're using traditional colors, take cerulean blue and add some white to it. Now I'm going to grab some of this more, this would be more like your cerulean blue on its own. And I'm going to add that up here into the corner, darken it up a little bit. Add a smidgen down here by the horizon. Now these paints do have a nice texture. The pastel range has a good texture, and that's due to the chalk. It's due to the filler. It's due to whatever white pigment they used on there, usually PW4, some sort of precipitated chalk. But it actually really works well for this wet and wet sky. So notice how I do not have a ton of paint on here, okay? Now we are going to go in with some lavender, really, really pale purple, You can mix that. You could use a little dioxazine violet and a lot of white, or you could mix up your purple with your ultramarine and permanent rose and add some white to it, whatever you want to do. And because we've wet our paper, we get some nice flow, and I'm just kind of dabbing in some purple clouds. Now the water, the more water you put in here, that's going to increase your texture, and if you like that texture, you need more water. If you don't like that texture, you want less water. I think the texture is kind of pretty in the sky because it gives it that that cloudy appearance. So I've got more texture in the sky because I pre-wet the sky and I got these nice textures. But in the water area, I did not pre-wet it, and I have more. I've got more of a uniform texture to it. So that's just stuff you learn. The more you do your watercolor, the more you're going to pick up on this. And this is kind of strange. You're probably not like used to having pastels like this. And by the way, if you have another set like the Prima watercolor confections or something like that, the Mungio pastels, anything like that, those will work fine. I had better luck with this than I had bought a pastel set of a fan palette, and it was just pastels, and I had better luck with this than that set, and I think it's because you have the pastels with the other colors, so it just makes it a lot more useful when you can use multiple colors. I like pink, so I'm putting a lot of pink in mine. If you don't, then don't. Now I'm going to use some of this lighter pink color. It's almost like a oh my gosh, it's just so, it's like almost like a petal pink, really, really light. It's got a little bit of a yellow undertone to it, but it is a pink. That's going on top of above my pink areas. And now I'm going to add a little bit of that kind of salmon-y peach. This color here, it's got a lot more yellow undertones. And I'll put some of that in here too. Now what you might notice is that some of the first areas, especially depending on how quickly you paint, you might notice that some of the areas where you started to paint has started to dry. And if that happens, what you want to do is you want to go back to that color that you used at the beginning or wherever it's starting to dry and just kind of swipe into it. Now you do want to be careful because here we have that kind of yellowy peach color, so you want to make sure that you're not going to get like a bright green. Nothing should be bright, but you might want to go in with more of a pink underneath it so you avoid the green. So I'll go with more of that pink tone under there and kind of skip the salmon. And I feel like I want a little more purple in my sky. You want to avoid the puddles. You want it uniformly wet, but not like puddly. Okay, that's a pretty sky. Do a little more purple there. And you do have to stop before it starts to dry on you, or you have to re-wet the area adjacent, or you'll get weird blooms, which might actually work, but, you know, that might just cause you more of a headache. All right, so now what we're going to do is we are going to work on the bottom area, and this time we're not going to wet. Now I just dropped a bit of water in there, so that's going to definitely make a blossom. So I just blotted it, and I'm just going to fill in that little section there. Goodness. Try not to drop paint. I also noticed I've got a little bit of a puddle happening there, so I am going to just kind of blot that out. I'm sorry, I should have warned you before I started tapping my thing. And there, see that water droplet there? And I got a white spot there because of that, so I should probably tend to that as well. But I'm just going to do that by picking up some color. I don't want my brush too wet. As long as you keep it equal, you keep the water equal on the paper, you shouldn't have blossoms. If you do want blossoms, then you have a damp wash and you add some color to it. I'm going to bang my painting again. So take your headphones off. I'm so sorry I didn't warn you before. Okay. Oh, I like that. That's pretty. Okay, so now for the water underneath, what we're going to do, I'm just going to put that back so you can see. Make sure it's somewhat in frame. What we're going to do here is we are going to start with that blue again, but we're not pre-wetting, but we do have our paint pretty wet. You throw some of that in there. So basically we're pre-wetting the paper with our color here. Don't get into the sky. I got a little crazy there, but basically you're going to try to mimic what you've got going on in the sky. Get that lavender in there. Doesn't have to be perfect. We're going to be putting reflections of trees in there, so don't fuss. Get our pink kind of over our purple areas. And we'll get a little bit of that light pink, kind of like ballet. I guess it'd be like kind of like a ballet pink. It's like ballet slipper pink, you know, that just barely a color there. And I'll just put little dashes of the salmon-y color where I see them, like reflected in the sky. All right, and I'm going to soften this area right there. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do, and we're going to do this while this bottom part is still wet, is we are going to add the reflection of our trees. And we're going to have to wipe out some of that color like near the horizon later, so don't worry about that. Don't worry about the mist at this point. That's going to be something we'll do later. But isn't that pretty just the way it is? I think it is. All right, so we're going to start. We're going to mix. I'm going to wipe up our space because we don't have a heck of a lot of extra space. I'm going to grab some sap green. And let's go ahead and just add some of that in here. And by adding this into the wet paint, it's going to mute it. And it's going to help us get that hazy look because we have that kind of, you can really see the white in the paint when we dab our sap green in there. It gives us that, that kind of chalky look, which ordinarily is not what we want in our watercolor, but we are on purpose painting with pastel tones. And we are going to be losing a bunch of our sky, which is kind of a bummer because it's so pretty. But on the bright side, if you were nervous about your sky or you were not happy with your sky, well, it doesn't much matter because a lot of it's going to get kind of obliterated. A little bit of that over here. This is Prussian blue plus sap green. You can have it come off the edge if you want to. Go right up to the tape. I taped it down about 1/8 of an inch on each side to have a pretty border when we're done. We'll grab a little orange. These beautiful fall colors, get them in there. I know they look bright, but if they mix around with any of the other colors there, it's going to make them softer, so don't worry about that. Like this is super bright crimson red, but when I start dabbing it in here, we get shadows, we get, we do get some reds, but we get a lot of just kind of like muted tones. There. Now what we can do is dry our brush off, and we're going to lift up some of the paint right here at the horizon line with our damp brush. Clean your brush off, blot it out. Actually, we're drying our brush off as much as we can. It's only damp because, you know, you can only dry it off so much, and we're just gonna brush over that. Coming from the other side. We're not trying to remove everything because we won't be able to. Alright, just soften it basically. Now, if you have a brush that's got an acrylic handle, we're going to use this for scraping up some of the tree trunks. See how it kind of like squeegees? It'll squeegee, it'll give you some light branches, and it will also give you some dark branches. And I find that, like, if it's really wet, you get more dark branches, and if it's a little bit lighter, you get, if it's a little bit drier, rather, you get lighter branches. So I think this is a good point to get our dryer out and start drying this, because in order to do the sky up top, those trees, we're going to need to have that dry. Now this was wetter than my first example because I can tell because of how blended my clouds got. Now I'm just drying this up a little bit at first because I'm going to see if I can get some lighter marks in here. You are scraping the paper when you do this, so you only want to do this in instances where you know you don't need to go back in. And the other thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go in and put some ripples in the water. You can even do some more, you can even do some kind of, what's the word, exaggerated ones. And another thing you can do is you can take your dry brush like this and you can lift up. Alright, let's dry that sky so we can work on the top part of the picture. I know it doesn't look like much now, it probably looks kind of messy, but I have faith. Alright, now we're going to go with a round brush, whatever brush you like to use. Number 8 would be good. This is probably a 12. Yeah, that's 12. Maybe I'll grab one that's a little bit smaller. Well, let me see. There's Nate right there. These are the Creative Mark Mimics. I really like these brushes. They are available in my signature set at Jerry's Autorama, or just at Jerry's Autorama or Amazon. Wherever you like to shop, you can get them in I would definitely recommend the sets over the over getting the individual brushes if you're just starting out, or especially if you don't know exactly what brush you love to use all the time. They are a lot cheaper in the sets, and they've got a Try Me set that is that's quite affordable. I think for $15 you get like 5 brushes, and I think there are a couple of brushes in there that cost more than $15, so I would recommend that if you're just looking to get a few new brushes. Now what I'm doing is just kind of tapping on some of the trees. I apologize, there's probably going to be a lot of noise in a minute because I can hear somebody has just come home. I think it's my girls coming home from softball practice. Maybe getting a little dark there. I'm making this way bigger. I think it's because my reflection is bigger. That's alright. That's alright, it'll be fine. So what I'm doing is I'll look at the reflection and kind of try to match what I'm doing. I'm going to lift out a little bit at the bottom there, maybe even just wet the bottom of the tree line just to kind of give me that misty look. I got distracted hearing the door upstairs. There, that'll help that a little bit. I don't want to wet it too much because I don't want to lose the colors. So I'm going to throw in the orange where I see orange. So we're doing a reflection because you've got to paint it opposite. It's kind of strange. Maybe it doesn't seem strange to anybody else, but it does me. Oh, I never put any yellow in the bottom part, but I do want some yellow in there. There's so many colors on that palette that it can be very difficult to figure out where, what one you just used. little yellow on the bottom while I'm at it too, just so I get that harmony. Just a little bit. That way it matches. A little bit of that crimson-y color. We see some of that in the trees up there. I recommend that you make a swatch if you have any of these paint sets, because it's very deceiving. It's very hard to tell what you have for colors. The red and the green together will make a nice shadow color. Okay. And I am going to do the same lifting. It gives us a pretty misty effect. Okay, now we can drag up some of the tree trunkies. And you can use use different edges of the. Actually, I don't think I would have as many over there because it's further away, but. You can use any edge that you want of your scraper to see, to get different effects. So like a sharper edge will give you a, kind of dig into the paper, give you a darker line, and you'll get a lighter line with the, with a wider, more blunt scraper. So to get that kind of purpley mist, we're actually going to use a mix of white and purple, and I need to make some room here because the mist definitely has a purple tone to it. Actually, I want to clean that up a little bit better because that's a mess. And we are going to mix those right up. First, we'll grab a bunch of white because you always want to go into white first if you're going to be mixing with white so you don't mess up the pan, you don't get it all dirty and have to waste a bunch cleaning it. And then we're going to grab some purple. I think I grabbed the wrong one, but they're pretty darn close. You can actually take a bunch of the colors right out of this palette, and you could just work on a limited palette, and have some extra space for mixing because you could mix in those wells. Because you can remove all the little pans individually. Clean them off my brush. I'm going to mix up a little bit more of that with the purple that we used. Which purple did we use? Did we use this one? Oh my gosh, I don't even know. Maybe just a little purple on its own. I think I just need a little bit more purple. Okay, and then I'm going to use a brush called a filbert because I think this works really well here, and this is going to help us get that misty look with that purple. Just kind of stipple on the edge of that, of where we painted. The purple mist. So this is not a traditional watercolor, because the traditional watercolor you would not use these pastel colors or white. That's okay, because it's fun. Now if you think you've got some of your other colors into your purpley white, you want to clean your brush off. And you can let things dry in between if you wanted to as well. In fact, we will let it dry and then we'll do some final touches after. Alright, oh, that's looking good, I think. Okay, and let's see, is there anything else we want to do while the paper is still wet? I don't think so. Let's do a quick blast off with our heat tool. Now, these techniques will cross over to other paintings. It's fun to practice skies, it's fun to practice landscapes, do this sort of thing because it just, it translates really well. So the next thing I'm going to use is a gel pen and or a white paint pen. You don't have to, it looks pretty without it, but I think this is a really nice extra touch to add. And what we're going to do is we're just going to redefine the horizon. Even though it's misty, it's still nice to have that line there, We're also going to throw in a few tree trunks with it and some glistens on the water. So you got to make sure that your paper's dry. If your paper is not dry, then your gel pen is going to clog and it'll be kind of a pain in the butt. So that feels dry to me. It usually goes nice and flat when it's dry as well. So for the horizon line, I'm going to grab my ruler again and I am just going to hopefully draw it in there accurately. Isn't that, I gotta measure it, I'm sorry. I gotta measure it. Let's see, where were we? I'm gonna measure from the tape. Actually, I'll measure from the bottom of the pictures, but 1.5 inches. Did I really get that far off? I can always get off. Oh, maybe not, 1.5 inches. Okay. Let's do a very quick little, and don't worry if it skips on that because that will look fine. Then I'm going to go in and throw just some ripples. Sorry for my squeaky chair. Alright, and then I'm going to go in and put some of the I smudge out the bottoms of them with my finger so they kind of bleed into the mist. And the fact that they are, that it skips a little bit actually makes it look a lot more realistic, I think. And of course, I'm trying to do this quickly for video. You can take as much time as you want with it. Please take time, enjoy yourself, have fun. This should be relaxing. And not stressful. If you want to put any reflections in there, you can too. You can even like add a little bit more to the horizon and kind of blend it out with your finger. Just like that. And you could tap on a little more white if you want a little bit more of a misty look. But that pretty much does it. Like I said, fiddle with it as much as you want until you get a look that is right for you. Let's remove our tape and see what we've got here. I hope you enjoyed this fast tutorial. I don't know, I guess it wasn't that fast. What is it? It's been about almost half an hour. But well, there we go. I think it's pretty. I could definitely spend a little more time on it. Maybe I will. I hope you enjoy it and you paint along with me. Thank you so much for watching. Please give me a thumbs up before you go. And until next time, happy crafting.